From the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. Hashtag the Sports Cypher on 1690, the talk of Chicago.
Cypher. Once again, it's on.
1690, WVON.
Welcome back. The second hour of the Sports Cypher. I am Maya Akai, rolling solo tonight. Gabe is healing up at home, but he was kind enough to call in so he could do quick picks with me, which is a segment where we take some topics and have quick conversations about them. Everything from Adrian Peterson to Jameis Winston. There's all kinds of things always going on in the world of sports. And so Gabe and I are going to give a quick rundown of those quick picks. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, 773-591-1690 is how you call in to be heard by everyone. Or if you want to get social with the show, at the Sports Cypher, at the Sports Chica, as well as, I told you, I added a new dynamic to the show. I'm allowing you to text in 779-206-9890 to text your comments in as well. How you feeling, Gabe?
Well, I'll tell you what, the Bears' victory today will make the healing process go a little bit easier.
Made a little bit easier, like, yeah, but you gotta say, that first half made you feeling like it might be a repeat of last week, didn't it?
You know, I'll admit, it was looking like an ugly game until the fourth quarter. I still don't think it was a perfect victory, but, you know, the Bears, they really picked it up together in that fourth quarter, and I definitely liked how they kept Devin Hester in check.
They did, but hey, they were welcoming seeing Devin Hester, you know, and I think they understand him. They did kick to him. It wasn't like they didn't kick to him. So, you know, overall, the second half was better. I think it'll be interesting. Patrick Finley's going to be on at 10:20, and I'll be curious to pick his brain with these new substitutions, how well they played. If this somehow will be any form of a conflict moving forward. I think we both talked about at some point thinking Christian Jones might really end up on the roster because he's so versatile. And you saw that today.
I'll tell you what, it'd definitely be interesting to hear his thoughts on how the linebackers did today, because the Bears, they really reached in their bag of tricks. They actually had to cut some players just so they can add some backup linebackers because of all the injuries that they had. So it'll be interesting to get his take on that as well. Yeah,
it was a very interesting win. I mean, like you said, it wasn't pretty, but you take your wins. If nothing else, I thought it was a good game for Jay Cutler. It was a good bounce back game from the last 2 weeks. You know, so
definitely
mistake-free football. I can go with that.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully they can keep this up.
All right, so let's jump into quick picks. You know, taking a couple topics and having some quick conversations about them. We normally would do scores and updates, but I did scores earlier, so we can just jump into talking updates and news. So some of the stories that you wanted to talk about, let's start out with the Adrian Peterson situation. What's going on with that?
Dude, what is wrong with you? Obviously when, you know, you're given a bond after you've been jailed and charged, obviously there's a lot of, you know, sure, yes, you forward whatever money or whatever collateral it is to get out of jail, but there's rules that are with that. And he decided that if he wanted to go smoke a joint or blunt or whatever it was, something that had marijuana in it, and what happened was he ended up having to take a drug test, and in the process he admitted that he smoked before he submitted to the test. So I don't know for sure if he's been arrested yet, but they're definitely looking at revoking his bail and putting him back in jail. And it's just, you know, the last thing that he needs, considering what he's being charged with and all the other goings on in the NFL, is just a really stupid move on his part.
Let me just say this. I am never one to advocate that you should be smoking marijuana period. I mean, obviously, it's still illegal, people. It's still not legal in every state. You know, so one, I think it was just absolutely harebrained that he would smoke marijuana because technically it does violate even the NFL league policy about substance abuse. It does. So I'm like, I know you're not playing currently, but let's not do something stupid. But let me say this at the same time, Gabe. I don't know how sitting Adrian Peterson in jail for marijuana makes any sense. I mean, I get he violated, the conditions of the bond, but I'm not quite sure how sitting him in jail really makes any sense.
I'm with you on that. I don't think there's really a purpose to that other than to just stick the guy in jail and try to make him an example. It was really all I see that happening. And but of course, obviously what could end up happening if they do hold him back in jail. His trial isn't scheduled to start till December. So there's always the possibility that they could throw him in jail and leave him in there till his trial begins. So, but again, it would only see to make an example out of him than it would anything else.
And what I'll be curious to see, since technically he tested positive, and that does go against the NFL policy about illegal substances. Now, is the NFL, even though he technically is inactive and not playing with the Vikings, are they going to take any kind of action based on him testing positive?
That's a really good question. I would assume, and maybe Patrick Finley might be able to answer this as well because he covers the NFL on a regular basis. I would assume that would have to fall under some guidelines with the collective bargaining agreement. I'm not quite sure how that all plays out for inactive players, but it's definitely something that I'm sure the league will look into. But yeah, it was just a stupid move on his part.
It was. I mean, and obviously it made sense that he would admit it because he already knew he was busted. So the results would have come back and he would have had to deal with it anyways. I mean, I just don't see how sitting him in jail, I don't get what it does. I mean, to me, it's a waste of taxpayers' money having him sit in jail. I mean, because granted, I know it's not legal, but I don't see how it serves any purpose in having him sit in jail. But I'm more curious to see how the NFL is going to handle this because clearly that's normally a 4-game suspension, but with him not playing, they really can't suspend him at this point. So I'll be curious how they respond to this. If Roger Goodell has not had enough to deal with, it just keeps on coming. It really does. So
exactly.
And you're right. I'll definitely ask Patrick about that, kind of like what is the league stance on this? What are they supposed to do? Because he's technically not active, and I'll be curious to see more about that. Something else that you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting. Tell me a bit about, as if college players can't stay out of trouble. You've got Todd Gurley suspended indefinitely for alleged allegations that he got paid for his autograph.
Apparently, there's a sports memorabilia dealer that's involved in this as well. I was reading an article on SB Nation yesterday about this memorabilia dealer based in Georgia, and who sells stuff for Atlanta teams, but also teams throughout the state as well. And I guess what had happened, something if I remember correctly from the article, and I forgot who wrote it, but it's on SBNation.com. Apparently, this memorabilia dealer had Gurley sign some autographs, and he claims to have paid him for those autographs. And then on top of that, I guess the memorabilia dealer says that at some point the autographs lost value. So I guess now he couldn't recoup that money. So I guess he decided to go public, is what his end of the story is. But as far as from Todd Gurley's standpoint, the university suspended him, not the NCAA, but the NCAA is investigating because obviously, selling memorabilia or anything like that for benefit obviously violates the extra benefits rule. But ultimately, I think what this boils down to is just another example of why players should get, a piece of the revenue that the NCAA and the conferences get off of the sports annually, especially football. I mean,
well, it was being reported that something like he was seeking anywhere from $8 to $25 per signature, and he would charge less to an autograph dealer if he was able to sign more pieces. And I guess the company that was dealing with this was called James Spence Authentication. And I guess he signed more than 300 jerseys, 30 mini helmets, 70 photos, 10 baseball, 9 Nike cleats. I mean, he signed a bunch of stuff. But see, Gabe, here's the thing with this. I'm not one for paying players, though I do believe that something needs to be done maybe on a stipend situation because they're not allowed to work. So they don't have money. So something does need to happen. I'm not one for paying players, but I'm okay with some form of a stipend, especially during season when they can't make money. I'm cool with that. But what's crazy about this with Todd Gurley, and I'm sure the University of Georgia is just absolutely embarrassed and disgusted, the amount of memorabilia that I just said he signed is clearly a slap in the face to the NCAA. You just didn't sneak and sign one or two things. You signed 300 jerseys, 700 or 70 photos. And you didn't think somehow that the NCAA wasn't going to get wind of this?
Rules are rules, and the NCAA rules have been in place for, half a century now. But, I'm with you, definitely some sort of stipend or something to help these players out. I don't think that giving these players a little extra will eliminate problems such like these and point shaving and other things where rules are broken and players get money under the table, but I definitely think it'll reduce the risk to some degree. So, hopefully one day, this will all work itself out. And obviously, when you take a look at the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit and other litigation that's been put up against the NCAA and the conferences over the last couple of years, obviously there's a big push to, make a change. And, until those changes are made, we're going to keep seeing instances like these, unfortunately.
And it's true, but the part to me that makes no sense because we saw what happened with Johnny Manziel when he was accused of this whole situation. So it isn't like Todd Gurley wasn't aware of the repercussions for his actions. And that's the part I think that blows my mind, regardless to if he needed the money or not. He knew that there were going to be consequences for his actions, and he just blatantly was like, well, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyways. And I think that part's ridiculous. And you're right. Even if they probably come up with some form of a stipend, I don't think this kind of stuff will go away, because there is just the lure of, this is my moment to make a lot of money, and I'm going to do so. So it's kind of interesting that he just threw so much caution to the wind and worked with an authentication company. That's the thing I think that blows me away with this.
I'm glad you mentioned Johnny Manziel, because as soon as that suspension came down, Johnny Manziel, posted something on his Twitter page in support of Todd Gurley. I didn't see exactly what he posted. I don't follow Johnny Manziel on Twitter, but that kind of made some headlines as well, considering Manziel was accused of the same thing. He just managed to, skate by under the rug and get away without any consequences. But, obviously, I understand that some of these guys, they look at, when they're playing at these big schools and the names are on the back of their jerseys, and and Todd Gurley was a front runner for the Heisman Trophy. He was one of the best running backs in the country. And obviously you want to try to do something to earn something off your name, especially if you don't end up making it to the NFL. So, there's a little extra incentive there for guys who think, okay, I could try to make the NFL, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'll make it to the NFL. So, when you have these types of things going on, obviously the NCAA is all about punishing and restricting, but they don't want to change the system that, created these situations in the first place. And that's the first thing that needs to happen, is the NCAA needs to make changes from top to bottom.
Yeah. And I think they're little by little trying to figure out how to do this. Like with the power conferences, they've given them the autonomy, in their decision making with a lot of different things, which is huge. So I guess we'll see how this plays out. But I'm going to agree with you. I don't care probably what they get stipend wise. I just think the allure of making that kind of money is going to be out there, and you're going to have people that are going to keep violating the rule. Now, and I think the only way that you're going to stop it, and I'm one on, like, if you want to stop people dead in their tracks, it should go from, not only will you be suspended indefinitely, you no longer can play in the NCAA. That'll stop people. You have to be that drastic if you want people to stop. You do.
Yeah, and obviously that ultimately the NCAA could decide to, take away his eligibility and his amateur status, and the school could kick him out. That's very possible. The NCAA has, some leeway here with what the punishment could be, but, again, like you and I have said, if they can come up with something to give these guys a little something extra, so if anything, they're less tempted to do something like this. But obviously, it won't make the problem go away, but it would help.
It will. And speaking of college players that just can't seem to stay out of trouble, Jameis Winston is back in the news again for something that was supposed to be remedied, obviously, before the season even started. I'm not sure if people remember the Florida State University quarterback, who is obviously the Heisman winner, was accused in December of last year. He was charged with sexual assault. And they went through the whole investigation process, and whatever happened, he was found, I guess, not to be guilty of this. Well, what's interesting, Gabe, is when I read the report, I thought immediately it sounded like somebody probably had finagled with some stuff, had been dishonest. I thought the whole investigation, how it was handled by the police department, it didn't seem right. Well, now it's coming out that a lot of the police chief in Tallahassee had pretty much given Winston's attorney information well before it ever went to the prosecutor. And they're looking at timelines, how supplemental reports, police reports, they even talked to players before. Like everything had pretty much been laid out to make it seem as if he was innocent. They had talked to players, almost kind of corroborated kind of an alibi for him, saying, oh, yes, these players were with him. They took statements. Very interesting that it's gone this far, and here it is back on the table again.
If that kind of incompetence took place here in Chicago, people are losing their badges. And, obviously this is a situation where, you have a star college athlete who's being protected because he's meant so much to the school. And again, goes back to the whole bringing in revenue thing. Even though his jersey may not have his name on the back of it, it's still a hot seller in the school bookstore. And this just stinks of a cover-up. And even though the district attorney claims that he was left out in the dark too, I really wonder if that was really the case, or if he's just trying to save his own hide and distance himself from the police department. Either way, I think that, and say what you want about federal government interference, but the feds need to step in and figure out what happened and lay down some punishments here, because this was just a big screw up. I don't care if you're a star athlete. I don't care who you are. Rape is a very serious thing.
Well, and you do
rape
know.
Is a very
in 2012, he was actually had another rape allegation, and they found DNA that matched on the victim's clothing, and it all came out. It asserted that it was consensual. So
exactly, and it's one thing if you're going above and beyond to protect somebody who is innocent, but when you take a look at the allegations against him, and you take a look at his other issues that he's had, suspensions and being arrested for other things, it really establishes a pattern of behavior. And the fact that the university went to this great length to try to protect him, just to sell tickets and make money is just terrible. And I definitely the NCAA, I think, should also step in and hand some punishments down to the university as well. So hopefully this will definitely. I hope that this won't go away, that something will be done, and that young woman will get justice, and everybody involved will get punished for being incompetent and just wrong.
I definitely think there's going to have to be some form of punishment for the Tallahassee Police Department, as well as the NCAA is going to have to step in and look at this, because with the amount of information that's being released and how this was handled, they can't turn a blind eye to it. Well, that wraps up Quick Picks. Gabe, thank you for checking into the show. Hopefully we're going to have you back in the saddle next week. I hope you feel better.
Thanks, Maya, and I can't wait to be back.
All right, take care of yourself, and we look forward to having you back in studio next weekend.
All right, Maya, take care.
All right, Quick Picks, a little segment we do. We take quick topics and talk about them really quickly. That wraps that up. When I come back from break, we're going to have on Patrick Finley, who is the Sun-Times beat writer for the Bears. Going to kind of expand the conversation about the game today. Stay tuned. Sports Cypher, Maya Kai. I'll be right back.